Hi, I'm Mike, the author of a new book we all want to know the answer to. Did God create homosexuality? Understanding Science and Scripture. Now, as you might know, today marks the 1-year anniversary of same-sex marriage, the day that a Supreme Court decision legally redefined marriage here in America. Unfortunately, it's also the 2-week anniversary of the tragic shooting in Orlando, where 49 Americans lost their lives at a gay nightclub and over 50 more were injured. My heart goes out to all the victims and the families of all those who are involved, and I have a special message for radical Islam towards the end of this video. Now, what's crazy is that this book started way back when I was in college and working at a gay nightclub, and I too almost died. You can find that story in the book, but what's more important is what I did with my second chance at life. As you can imagine, coming so close to death had given me a new appreciation for life. I recovered, I graduated, and then went back to grad school. During the week, I worked at a cardiovascular research lab where I studied the effects of different types of exercise on cardiac gene expression and morphology after a heart attack. On weekends, I worked at a San Antonio gay nightclub. Several of my research studies went on to be published, including one in the World Journal of Cardiology. This led to a teaching job at the University of Texas, San Antonio, where I taught a class on the subject of neuromotor learning, which basically is the study of how the brain learns new skills and, in essence, changes the brain, a process we call neuroplasticity. Then immediately after the 2014 semester, I quit. I had done everything society says we should do. I went to school, earned several degrees, professional publications, a career, and a side business, but something was missing. Was that it? Was that all life was about? Go to school, get money, work hard for 40 years, retire, and die. As far as I was concerned, I had already died, almost died once. A quote of mine in the book is, "If you don't search for truth, your only certainty is, truth will never search for you." And so, following my intuition and taking my own advice, I did exactly that. In total, this book was a 7-year journey that changed my life in such a way that I never could have imagined. Well, there are so many, for instance, like genetic entropy, which actually plays a profound role in terms of science and scripture. But I really want to hit on one because it has to do with my address to radical Islam. You see, 1 John 4:20 tells us, if a man says, "I love God," and hates his brother, he is a liar. For he who does not love his brother whom he has seen, how can he love God whom he has not seen? Scripture tells us that God is love and love is God. The two are interchangeable. Although we can't see love, we can physically observe its effects in a lab. For instance, today we know that a mother rat who nurtures her baby pups will beneficially alter her pups' genes. The nurturing environment provided by the mother will downregulate expression of glucocorticoid receptor. In essence, the pups will live happy rat lives. But if the baby pup is not nurtured, if the mother is not there providing love, then glucocorticoid receptor is upregulated, and as a result, the rats will be stressed and anxious. Now, what's interesting is it's reversible. But keep in mind that from a biochemical standpoint, stress kills. Love, therefore, has the opposite effect, a happy, long life. But what is love? Love is an invisible force. Quantum mechanics is the branch of physics that deals with the mathematical description of the motion and interaction of subatomic particles. But love is not predictable. In other words, you can't describe love by math or chemistry or by a physics equation. Love is extraneous to all of that. It's free will. It's a choice. Now, remember that 96% of the universe is undetectable, unmeasurable, unknowable. Therefore, love is acting in this realm because we can't see love. But we can measure the visible, detectable effects of love in a lab. So I have an example that might help you see just how intense this is. So these are 2 books, PhD level books in epigenetics. Now I want you to pretend this is the genome. This is the set of instructions that makes the mom rat. This is the set of instructions that makes the baby pup. Now, the mom rat is being a good little mother and just nurturing her young. But notice there's no interaction between genomes. There's nothing being exchanged, nothing that's predictable. So that is in essence what I mean. So what's funny about love is outside of the observable universe, but impacts the observable universe in a real observable way. Now, listen to what Paul says in Romans 12:2. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed through the renewing of your mind. Now, I want you to hold that thought for just a second. Epigenetics is the study of how thoughts and environment influence expression. That is, the lyrics we listen to, the shows we watch, the places that we hang out at the most, what we spend the most time thinking or studying about. These things alter chemical tags that switch on or switch off certain genes, which essentially makes you who you are. Epigenetics is also why genetically identical twins are different, despite having the same genes. Therefore, they have the same genome, but different epigenomes. And the epigenome, we know, is not permanent, but rather subject to change. So what Paul is saying is to be set apart from the world. Don't let your genes conform to the pattern of this world. Instead, be changed by the way you think. Be changed by the shows you watch, by the songs you listen to, by the places you go. That is what Paul said 2,000 years ago. To say that science is catching up would be a profound understatement, as these two PhD level books would testify. In hindsight, it all makes sense, but at the time, none of it made sense. Why I worked at a gay bar, how almost dying was the catalyst for this book, a wake-up call, so to speak. Why I went to grad school and became a published cardiac scientist, understanding how exercise beneficially impacts the physical condition of a diseased heart at the genetic level, so that one day I can make the profound connection that spiritual exercise also benefits the diseased heart, and how we can scientifically measure that change in a lab. Why I taught at a university, so that one day I could teach the world. Or why I quit my job to answer the question, did God create homosexuality? And at a time the world needed to hear it the most, right now. There are no coincidences, and there are no words to describe what this journey has meant to me, and the hundreds upon hundreds of people I've met and sat down with and interviewed along the way, whose personal stories are like the DNA to this book. Whether you're gay, straight, you can't afford to not read this book. It's about understanding science and scripture on a much deeper level than you ever have. Your God, the God of Abraham, was a God of love. So my question to you is, and I want you to use that God-given brain of yours, what are you doing? You're bringing shame to the creator of the universe, which is the all-consuming essence of love. Rather than setting an example to the world of what love is, you're setting an example of hate for all to see. If you think God needs to use a sinner like you to brutally murder and rape, behead innocent women and children, enter into a Florida gay bar and spray bullets all over the place, it seems like you're pretty confused, and your confusion is causing a great deal of needless suffering. Your God is a God of love, and He sent His only begotten Son to die. That was a sacrifice which God promised that He'd provide the day that Abraham went up the mountain to sacrifice his own son. And you know what? God fulfilled this promise so that you may have everlasting life. That's how incredibly much He loved you. If you took a break from all your raping and killing to do a little bit more studying or research, perhaps a change of heart, then maybe you'd realize that. Let's all be a little bit more like God and love, because the truth is they're both interchangeable. Share this message if you believe we should spread love, not hate. Spread this message if you're sick and tired of hate and innocent slaughter and ignorance. And the thing about ignorance is, the highest form of ignorance is to deny, reject, or criticize something you don't know anything about.